So we are here in Budapest, Hungary, for the visit of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, and I now have the great privilege of sitting with Balázs Orban, who's the political director for the Prime Minister, essentially the senior policy advisor on domestic and foreign policy. It's really great to be sitting with you today and to be discussing this great visit and also Israel-Hungary relations.
Thank you very much for visiting us. It's a privilege.
Now, at the press conference yesterday, there was a pretty dramatic announcement that Hungary was going to withdraw from the International Criminal Court. Can you tell me how you reached this decision?
I think it's a very serious decision. It was a very serious decision from the Prime Minister because he was the one who signed the agreement originally back in time when Hungary decided to join. But unfortunately, the world changed since then. And what we experience, I would call it a general approach. So if you look around and see the international organizations, UN, EU, and Council of Europe, and then some other organizations, they are getting more and more involved in politics in a bad way, in political ideology in a bad way. And unfortunately, it became obvious for us that the same happened with the ICC in the last years. And Hungary is a peace-loving nation. We are well known among the international audience that we always arguing in favor of peace, how to solve conflicts. And what we've seen is that the ICC recent decisions are not serving Hungary's peace strategy. So if you are dealing with a biased, politically motivated international court, which is affecting your sovereignty and is making peace harder in the Middle East, this is not something where Hungary should belong to. So this is why we decided to leave.
Were there other decisions in addition to the ICC's decision to put arrest warrants on Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant?
Of course, because like Israel stability is important for the stability of the Middle East. So, and I think all countries has to work together with Israel to stabilize the Middle East. Hungary wants to work together with Israel and some other countries on stabilizing the Middle East. How do you want to do that if you have a warrant against the acting prime minister who is supported by the Israeli people? So it makes no sense. International courts shouldn't intervene like this based on a clear political motivation. So that was a major part of our decision.
You mentioned that Hungary's taken a peacekeeping role in the world, and I've seen you're taking recent efforts to try to mediate some kind of a solution to the Russian-Ukraine war, and you've explained that this war is just going to keep going on and on and on unless we reach some kind of a negotiated solution. Tell me how those efforts have gone, and also, I think more importantly, if you see any parallels between the Russia-Ukraine war and the war that Israel is currently fighting against Hamas in Gaza and against all of Iran's terror proxies.
So the Russian-Ukrainian war is in our close neighborhood. It has a devastating effect on us, on the Hungarians as well. It's a very heavy, very bloody conflict. From day one, we were talking about that this is a conflict which has no solution on the battlefield. As sooner the parties get back to the negotiation tables, it will be the better for everyone. My prime minister, when we were heads of the rotating presidents of the council, he decided to make a peace mission. Visited Kiev, visited Moscow, then went to Beijing, then went to the United States of America, met with Trump. We have constant contact with the Turks and so on. So we discovered the sea, and it became obvious that the parties who are directly involved into the conflict, Russians and the Ukrainians, they want to keep fighting. So they don't want to close the conflict. So we need mediators, and we need diplomats who are doing their part of the job. And we know our size. We know that we cannot be a decisive actor in big international conflicts, but we can do our part. And our part was that my prime minister sent a report to the European leaders when he informed them about the situation, and he suggested them that the Europeans should change their strategy and be more active. It was before Trump was re-elected. Be more active and try to engage in a diplomatic way. Unfortunately, this suggestion was rejected, as it was predicted by my prime minister. Trump was re-elected. He started his own peace mission with his size and with the influence and the power of United States of America. And he is trying to make peace, which is not easy, but he is working on that. And in the meantime, Europe is left out, and we are marching in a dead-end street. The parallel, what I see, obviously, is the Middle East conflict is also a bloody conflict. We were horrified when we seen the terror attacks against Israel. We think that Israel has a right to defend itself. We don't want to see the conflict is turning into a bloody regional war, because what we learned in the last decade, that if something happens in the Middle East, it immediately affects our country as well, through migration mainly. So poor people during the previous Syria civil war, they moved to Turkey, and from Turkey through the Balkans to Hungary and to Western European countries, and it's a direct threat to our security as well. So we try to talk to everyone. We try to play a useful role, and we see Israel as well as a strategic partner, and we try to support our Israeli friends to defend themselves and to preserve the country's sovereignty.
President Trump has talked about a plan to resettle Gazans outside of the Gaza Strip. Is that a policy that Hungary would support, or try to help facilitate some kind of an arrangement?
Well, what we think is that the solution it should not be invented by the Hungarians. So if there is a solution which is supported by the international community, and it's workable, and it provides an opportunity to close a conflict which is going back for a very, very long time, then I think we Hungarians, we have to be supportive on that.
Can you tell me a little bit about the roots of the Hungarian-Israel alliance? How did Hungary come to see Israel as an ally?
Well, we have the third largest European Jewish community living in Hungary. And when Prime Minister Orban came to power, he made it clear that these people are Jewish people, but also Hungarian citizens, and our duty to defend everybody's right to freedom of religion, and we have to be able to defend each and every citizen of us. If we are not able to do so, then we are not doing our job properly. So he then declared this zero tolerance policy on anti-Semitism, and since then I think we are the toughest one against all kind of anti-Semitisms in Europe. And after 2015, when the migration crisis did hit the country, which meant 400,000 illegal migrants wanted to walk across the Hungarian borders without any permission, without any respect towards the Hungarian law law and order. That was the time when I think all Hungarians realized that something deeper is going on, something civilizational is going on. So mass migration can be a real security threat, and like this kind of multicultural way of living, when we mix civilizations and we mix religions and we tolerate religious fundamentalism, this is not something we can live together with. So that was the time when the Prime Minister decided that the safety and the security and the strategic cooperation with Israel is very important. They have good friendship, old and good personal friendship between Prime Minister Netanyahu and Prime Minister Orban. That's important. We see that we are entering in an era of, it's a new world order. We like to call it an era of sovereignty, where those countries can be successful, where there are strong leaders, and these strong leaders can, based on a personal basis, work together. They know each other, they trust each other. So this is how you develop good international relations. And this is what's happening between the two countries. So I would say there is a general approach in Hungary, which means zero tolerance on anti-Semitism. And it's based on the idea that all Hungarian citizens should be protected. Second one, migration. We learned the lesson that this is a serious issue. And the third one is a strategic partnership between the two countries based on friendship between the two leaders.
What do you think the two countries can learn from one another?
Well, I think both countries are like old nations. So the story of people of Israel is well known. The story of their sacrifice, their suffering, their desperate and brave fights for their country and their sovereignty is well known for the world. But we Hungarians, we do have a same kind of story. The Hungarian tribes, they got together and they become united more than 1,500 years ago in the middle of an East Asian plain, and they decided to move towards west, and they found this place, and they occupied this place, and they created a state, a Christian state. They created a homeland. They created prosperity and peace for those who were living under the territory of Hungary. And since then, we have our unique language, unique culture, unique way of understanding, unique viewpoint on the world, and our purpose of existence. What we think is that we have to preserve it, what we have, what we achieved, and we have to pass it to the next generation. And I think this kind of understanding probably is not the majority position on the world, but I think it's very similar between the Hungarians and the Israelis.
Well, certainly I think a lot of Israelis not only appreciate the safety that they have when they come here, but they see the policies, and they see how Hungary is defending its national interests, is pushing back against this globalist or continental order. And you talked a little bit about a new world order or an era of sovereignty. Can you tell me a little bit more about what this era of sovereignty looks like? And also, who do you think are the ones that are promoting this along with you, and who are the ones that are trying to prevent this era of sovereignty?
Well, after the Cold War period of after the Cold War, the new world order was a unipolar world order, obviously, but the ideology behind it, or the ideas behind it, were based on neoliberal principles. But I think today, it's obvious that these neoliberal principles failed. They are not working anymore. And the power balance inside the world has changed. There are different political structures, different economic structures, even different civilizational background countries, and they are also successful in their ways. We don't it's not our way, but we have to admit that there are different ways. So what we see now is that a new kind of equilibrium is starting to emerge. It's still, we are in a transition period, but it's obvious that the speed of the change is amazing. How fast is it? And all countries has to be prepared for that. And we like to use these terms age of sovereignty because we firmly believe that those countries could remain successful, which has a special and a unique political system, economic system, stability, and the capability of defending their own sovereignty, and use this power and engage, and use this stability and engage in international dialogues based on that. So the era where we have to adapt to someone else is over. We don't want to import anyone's thoughts on politics, how the economy should look like. We have to invent our way of doing things, which fits for the Hungarian voters. And on that stable basis, we can engage. What we started a couple of years ago is a new grand strategy. It's called the Hungarian Connectivity Strategy. We saw that this kind of new Cold War bloc formation logic is emerging. And look on the European Union, look on Brussels. They isolated themselves from the Russians, cut energy cooperation, which caused serious harm for European economy and competitiveness. They started a trade war against China, which is the biggest market for many companies. And based on ideological differences, they destroyed connections and possibilities to find a fair deal with the current administration of United States. So when we see that this bloc formation logic based on neoliberal principles, which is followed by Brussels, it caused tremendous isolation for Europe. Hungary wants to go the other way around. We are a member of European Union, member of the community, but we maintain relationship with Russia. We have strategic partnership with China, and we have a strategic partnership with United States of America. And we are looking for opportunities, deals based on our own national interest. It's a realist, national interest driven policy. This is why I would.
You've been to Jerusalem 3 times, you said, and obviously you've been in a strong alliance with the state of Israel and the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. How would you say this neoliberal policies and order is also posing a threat to Israel from your view?
Well, I think there are some obvious signs. So based on these neoliberal principles, just see how the foreign policy, soft diplomacy looked like for the previous administration. So for the Biden administration, previous administration of United States. They were promoting gender issues. Which is kind of an anti-traditional family issue. So if somebody wants to promote an ideology which is against traditional way of life and traditional families, which is against having as stable relationship marriages as we can, and having as many children as we can have, this is problematic. This is a threat for all the countries, for Israel as well. If somebody is coming and promoting something which is against the children and against the traditional families, then it's in a longer period of time, it will cause the decay or the decline of Israel state as well. And I think it's the same with the Hungarian issue. So this is, I think, one very good example, because even if somebody disagrees with the Likud party, or even if somebody disagrees with the Fidesz party here in Hungary, the reasonable people, they are saying that, look, we don't want to accept an international trend, an ideology, which is actually very similar to the, based on the logic, to the previous Marxist ideology, which is promoting to have less stable traditional relations and less children. It's insane. So how can we survive? How can you survive in this environment where you are at the Middle East? So these things are problematic. And the other thing, all these globalist, progressive, woke international agenda is using the international organizations as a toolkit to promote their own ideology. And I think it's very bad for all nation states, because we are in an era which is full of conflicts. It's very hard to manage it. It's very hard to avoid wars. We need international structures, but international structures which are not biased based on woke ideology, but which are neutrals, and we can work on the basis of these international organizations together. The nations can work together in a neutral and safe environment. But if everything is affected by the woke ideology, how can it be successful? So these are the major threats. It has a very hard destabilizing effect on the nation states and on the international cooperation institutional structures, and it should be worry all people around the world.
You talk a little bit about the need for neutrality in the international structure, and I've seen you on interviews in the United States talk about how you are basically accusing the previous Biden administration of using State Department funds, U.S. aid funds to try to undercut your government and really overthrow Viktor Orban as the prime minister. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And because as of now, we're seeing that the White House has put out a letter also trying to investigate if U.S. aid funds and other funds were used similarly to try to overthrow Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So, can you tell me a little bit from your experience, what Israel needs to look out for, what you're looking out for, and how, basically how corrupt do you think this is?
Well, we are very thankful to the Trump administration. We known about it, so it's not a surprise for us, but we couldn't show it. And now we have the Trump administration, and they have the facts. They can show how corrupt this system was. And I think from an American, I'm not the one who should talk from an American taxpayer position, but as an outsider, I can see why they are so frustrated, because your American taxpayer money is used by the government to support the ideology which was invented by multi-billionaires like George Soros and his organizations, but he obviously didn't want to spend his own money, so it was very convenient for him to use the American taxpayers' money, governmental money, and based on that structure to spread this neoliberal, progressive, open society ideology all over the world. And I think it's the biggest corruption scandal of the world. And we see how this structure is operating in Hungary. Many opposition media people, many opposition politicians. Actually, the campaign of the latest opposition United Front was financed by American taxpayers' money. In the meantime, America and United States are allies in the NATO. So I think it is something which is undermining the legitimacy and the credibility of United States. So we are very thankful, and I think it was very good decisions from the United States point of view to try to get rid of these corrupt structures. And we want to catch up, because now it's time to to act against these media outlets and NGOs and politicians. It's again a sovereignty issue for us. So we can have disagreements. Like all the Hungarian wealthy people can have the right to support any political platform or initiative they want. Actually, the state is financing a lot. It's giving a lot of support to different kind of media outlets to maintain a tolerant and mixed media environment in Hungary. But if the Hungarian politics is financed by country, by a foreign country, I think it's unacceptable. It doesn't matter whether it's financed from China or United States or Austria or Germany or even from Israel. I think it's unacceptable. So, and I think that it would also be unacceptable for you as well in Israel. Israeli politics should be financed by the Israelis, from Israel, not from outside. So this is what we try to put together as a new framework, and we have one fear that we see that since the liberals and the progressives positions are weakening in Washington, they try to move to Brussels, and they try to use the European taxpayers' money and use the European institution to get new resources and to find new so-called donors and to increase their activities here in the continent. And this is also something what I think is unacceptable for us. So we try to use what we have. We have a big fraction, the Patriots for Europe in the European Parliament. That's the third largest fraction, and we try to work with them together to be transparent on that and try to corner these initiatives and try to fight back against this transnational corrupt bureaucratic system.
Well, you clearly have an ally in Benjamin Netanyahu, and it seems clear that you have an ally in Donald Trump. Who are some of the other allies that are maybe coming together to form this alliance? And are you ultimately optimistic that working together, that you can establish this age of sovereignty?
Well, I think it's if you look around inside the Western world, let's talk only about the Western world, and you have Israel, the Vatican, and the United States of America on your side, it's not so bad. So it's a good starting point. What we see is that the wind of change is also here in Europe, and since we put together the Patriots, the European Parliamentary Group, all our member parties are winning elections. Sometimes for them it's very hard to get into government because they are under constant legal pressure and political pressure by the opponents, like what happened with Marine Le Pen in France. But in Italy we have a conservative government. In the Netherlands, Mr. Wilders' party is also in power. There will be elections in the Czech Republic. We have Slovakia, which has mainly a socialist-oriented but sovereigntist government for sure. In Austria, our partner party, the Freedom Party, won the elections. It is the strongest party now. So I think the landscape is slowly but surely changing on the European continent as well. And outside the European continent, outside the Western world, honestly, every serious player, it doesn't matter whether we go to Asia or the Middle East or Far East or the American continent, everybody is thinking in the same way. Everybody respects sovereign countries, strong leadership, and everybody sees that the new world order has come and we have to figure out the new rules because the old rules are not working anymore. So I see many potential partners inside the Western world and also outside the Western world.
We're seeing this shift where the sort of neoliberal order is becoming more and more anti-Semitic, and yet at the same time, those allies that are trying to bring in this new era which I would suggest have a history of anti-Semitism, are really trying to become less anti-Semitic. Can you tell me how this shift happens, and where do you see the treatment of Jews as being a barometer of how healthy is an ideology?
Well, what we see here in Europe, that all of this, what you described quite precisely, is linked with the mass migration. And the so-called great replacement theory is, honestly, it's not theory, it's something which is in practice. It's happening. So it means that and it's not a conspiracy theory for sure. So it's happening that those leftist political forces all over Europe see the Muslim migrants who are coming as potential voters because they would never vote for a Christian party. So they are encouraging the mass migration flows, and they are encouraging the family unifications. These are not just coincidence or bad-minded things. These are just part of a strategy, and they want to give them citizenship, and it's changing the entire political landscape and power balance. This is happening in France. This is happening in Germany. This is happening in the Netherlands, in every major Western European country. And we Hungarians, we see the signs. We see that it's going on. I mean, it's not up to us to judge it. It's their decision. It's their country, but we don't want to follow it. So I think if you don't want to have new kind of anti-Semitism in your country, you have to close your borders. You have to defend your culture and your Judeo-Christian heritage. It is so simple. It's not rocket science. And how to close the borders, it's also not rocket science. You have to put resources into it, I mean, physically, and you have to have a governmental will. You have to have a legislation which works. This is what we have in Hungary. If you try to make it illegally into Hungary, we will not let you in. We are under sanctions by the European Court, by the Luxembourg Court. Hungary has to pay every day 1 million euro because we don't let the illegal migrants in. But it's a money which is worth to spend. It's obvious that it is outrageous that we are under sanctions because of this, and we will not let it continue for long, and we will get back our money. But that's a different story. But in general, it's like if you let those people in, the cost, the social costs, and the financial costs would be much higher than 1 million euro per day. So this is why we Hungarians are very tough on that, and we have a zero illegal migration policy. And in general, the level of migration is very limited, is very low, the lowest in the European Union in Hungary. And I think if in this modern era in Europe you want to fight against anti-Semitism, it would mean a very tough fight against illegal migration.
Balázs Orbán, a lot of clear-headed thinking. Thank you so much for being with us here on JNS.